Justin Trudeau shows just how embarrassed he is by spewing word salad over the comments made in Tucker Carlson's interview with Vladimir Putin. Let's get into it.
Oh, yeah!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. Tucker Carlson once again breaking the internet, and he destroyed it last night with his interview with Russian Vladimir Putin. Now, the world has been abuzz ever since Tucker Carlson announced, or didn't announce, I should say, very discreetly that he was going to do this interview. Outlets saw it coming. There was talk about European sanctions at one point, rumored to be in the works that, of course, have been since silenced, that Tucker wouldn't be allowed to travel to the European Union. There was word going around that Tucker might even be banned from re-entering the United States based on a simple interview. What's important to note is that when we talk about Justin Trudeau and when we talk about Canadian politics, this is the sign of the G8 or G7, I guess, at this point. Sanctions on the world. This is how they want control of things, is you can't do anything if we disagree with it. Now, Tucker Carlson is a journalist. He's a very good journalist, and his job is to interview people. And we've seen over the years, many people, when you look at interviewees like Diane Sawyer, who sat down with controversial leaders, people who interviewed people like Gaddafi back in the 80s, were never condemned for doing their job. The problem today is that you have controlling nations that seem to want to stop people from having the ability to talk outside of their vision of the world, outside of their rhetoric. And they always label it as disinformation. And I'm really starting to hate that word, but let's get into what happened yesterday as Tucker Carlson sat down with a very successful interview with Vladimir Putin. Again, good old Vladdy. I haven't had a chance to watch the full interview yet, I have to admit. But let's take a listen to what triggered Justin Trudeau, and then we're going to get into his response. Let's take a listen.
The president of Ukraine visited Canada. The story is well known, but being silenced in the Western countries. The Canadian Parliament introduced a man who, as the Speaker of the Parliament said, fought against the Russians during the World War II. Well, who fought against the Russians during the World War II? Hitler and his accomplices. It turned out that this man served in the SS troops. He personally killed Russians, Poles, and Jews. The SS troops consisted of Ukrainian nationalists who did this dirty work. The president of Ukraine stood up with the entire Parliament of Canada and applauded this man. How can this be imagined? The president of Ukraine himself, by the way, is a Jew by nationality.
Really, my question is, what do you do about it? I mean, Hitler's been dead for 80 years. Nazi Germany no longer exists. And so, true. And so, I think what you're saying is you want to extinguish or at least control Ukrainian nationalism. But how? How do you do that?
Вот послушайте меня. Ваш вопрос очень тонкий.
Listen to me. Your question is very subtle, and I can tell you what I think. Do not take offense.
Of course.
Он, казалось бы, тонкий, он очень противный, этот вопрос.
This question appears to be subtle. It is quite pesky.
Значит,
You say Hitler has been dead for so many years, 80 years. But his example lives on. People who exterminated Jews, Russians, and Poles are alive. And the president, the current president of today's Ukraine, applauds him in the Canadian Parliament, gives a standing ovation. Can we say that we have completely uprooted this ideology if what we see is happening today? That is what denazification is in our understanding. We have to get rid of those people who maintain this concept and support this practice and try to preserve it. That is what denazification is. That is what we mean.
Right.
So he lays down pretty firmly here his thoughts on Justin Trudeau for what took place in Parliament. Now, he didn't talk about Trudeau's ability to lead a country. He didn't talk about the gaffes of Trudeau or emergencies acts or convoys or anything else. What he's talking about here is the slap in the face heard round the world by Canadian Parliament by inviting a Waffen SS soldier into the House of Commons for a standing ovation. And we all saw, even in the clip there, about Anthony Rota saying, hey, I invited the guy into the house. We didn't check everything in the backgrounds. We didn't know. We didn't. I mean, the argument was always present from day one that, well, of course you knew. As soon as you say in your speech, and he even paused during his introduction of Yaroslav Honka in the House of Commons, as soon as he said, fought against the Russians in World War II, he knew darn well where he was going with that speech. But it's come to light now that Justin Trudeau's office invited this man to a private function during this time. So if you're going to allow somebody access to the leader of of one of the freest countries in the world, I'm pretty sure you'd do a severe background check and know just who this person is. Now, of course, that question gets brought up in this interview with good old Skippy, where I mean, I want you to look, not only listen to what this moron has to say in his answer, because of course this is going to be what Pierre Poilievre has been talking about all week about wedge issues. This is going to be the wedge issue in the next election. Alberta's newest decisions on protecting children, Tucker Carlson, Russia, and you're going to hear about words like MAGA. Justin Trudeau and his new, we'll call it marketing agent, rebranding agent, has brought in MAGA-style politics, and they've used it to their advantage, at least that they feel their advantage, in order to say that Pierre Poilievre is a terrible human being and Justin Trudeau just wants the world to be free. You don't want any orange man bad type politics in Canada. But what they're doing is showing that they're the ones who are bringing the definition of those politics already into Canada. So we're going to listen to what old Skippy has to say here, but take a look at Doug Ford's face as he stands next to his Führer, Prime Minister. And the look on his face the entire time is just that he wants to leave. He does not want to be there for this interview. Let's take a listen to what Trudeau had to say and the word salad that he spits, being utterly humiliated, by the way, by a journalist. And we'll get into that after.
I've been such an ardent supporter of Ukraine, but there's been a lot of controversy surrounding President Zelensky's visit here, and now we've heard Vladimir Putin use some of that embarrassment in an interview with Tucker Carlson. How does it feel to know that that visit and your office's role in inviting a former Nazi to a reception is creating hardship for an ally?
Vladimir Putin chose to invade a neighboring sovereign country, violating the rights, the sovereignty, the territorial integrity of Ukraine, and violating the rules-based order that underpins the safety, the security of all of us living in democracy, in free democracies around the world. He will, of course, use whatever propaganda he can engage in, but I can tell you, Canadians will not be fooled.
Wait a minute, let's pause for a second. Using any tools he has to stomp on the free people of Ukraine and use any propaganda in order to do so. Doesn't that sound familiar? Doesn't that sound like something that happened here, 2 years ago, when he was campaigning to be the prime minister again and running around saying, you don't want to get on a train or a plane and sit next to unvaccinated people. You don't want to be around dirty people that make choices about their bodies, who says they're misogynists, they're racists, they take up space. How do we tolerate them? Does anybody remember that? Does anybody remember the jackboots that were sent in to shatter windows of trucks, to shoot tear gas onto Canadian citizens, to declare war on its own people? Am I the only one who says he's just spouting what he's done over the last 2 years? I never thought I'd see a day where I'm sitting here defending Vladimir Putin. But let's continue. And there's Doug Ford. Look at that face. Look, you can see it in the pause. He's just like, get me out of here. I don't want to be here. Let's finish up with what his stupid statement was.
Canada stands with Ukraine, not just because we are friends to Ukraine, but because the rules-based order and the system of laws and the UN Charter protect all of us, not just Ukrainians. So we will continue to be there with Ukraine for as much as it takes, for as long as it takes. Unfortunately, we see the lengths to which Russian propaganda will go to try and impact public opinion, to try and twist things the way we want to.
Of course, trending in Canada right now under politics is Make Canada Great Again. And Tucker Carlson here on Twitter. What we're seeing is a shift. This is Justin Trudeau utterly embarrassed, breaking down, and realizing, he says, "Oh, we stand with the Ukraine not just because we're friends of the Ukraine. No, it's because they're laundering your money. It's because it's an easy way to launder money right now. That's why he stands with the Ukraine. It works for his financial gain, and it works for the same reasons that we were locked in our homes for 2 years. How many politicians saw their net worth skyrocket with pharmaceutical companies during pandemics? Justin Trudeau, I've said it a million times on videos, on live stream, Justin Trudeau's net worth when he became Prime Minister of Canada was around $9 million. He's now worth upwards of $100 million. What kind of leader who is a civil servant makes that kind of wealth over 8 years of being in office when he's only paid a mere $300,000 a year? Corruption. We're seeing now, again, as I stated at the beginning of the video, places like the European Union floating around politicians that are saying we should be banning Tucker Carlson from coming back to the European Union. We saw protests before Tucker came to Alberta saying he shouldn't be allowed in Canada. You shouldn't let Tucker Carlson interview Danielle Smith. Oh, dear God, that's terrible. We saw the Liberals break down and cry after the interview saying, oh, Danielle Smith said negative things about us. And that Pierre Poilievre should be condemning Tucker Carlson for coming to Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, what they're doing, when Vladimir Putin talks about Nazism being alive still, this is what he's talking about. Your common day-to-day leaders are still pushing that rhetoric. If Canada isn't fully invoked in Nazism right now, I don't know what is. Because you have a party that invites an actual Nazi to the House of Commons. You've got a party that declares war on its citizens, that limits what citizens can see and read on the internet, that limits free speech, that throws people in jail for standing up for their rights, that locks people in their homes. I mean, Quebec has just issued a ban that you're not allowed to use certain types of stoves and ovens in the province anymore. It's forbidden. I mean, I'm not talking about the extradition and extermination of the Jewish people here. I'm talking about core beliefs of a Nazi party. And it's alive and well in most of our G7 countries. It's all about control, propaganda, and shutting people's free speech down, their ability to live, their ability to work, their ability to make decisions for themselves. Everything is about dependency on the government. And I applaud Tucker Carlson and his efforts. I'm very proud that Tucker was able to go and do this interview, regardless of my views on Vladimir Putin. He was definitely Putin the boots to Justin Trudeau in that interview, I'll tell you that. But let me know your comments down below. If you think Justin Trudeau's scrambling, if you think that we're going to see more of this mention all the time, that if you thought mentioning things like MAGA and Pierre being close to right-wing extremists, how much do you think Russia's going to be brought up now that this is done? We're going to see full-blown U.S. politics in Canada. Let me know your opinions down below. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Just a reminder, you've got just under 2 weeks left to head over to unacceptablefringebooks.com to pick up your signed copies of any of our books that are left in stock. A few of them have been sold out already. But if you wanted to get your hands on autographed books from myself directly shipped, now is the time. Just a reminder, unacceptablefringebooks.com is down below in the link description. Canada-wide shipping is included. So pick up your books now. They are on clearance. They're being liquidated, essentially, to get them out of stock. So grab yours now. Make sure to join us this evening for our first Friday night stream, our first official Friday night stream, Friday Night Fringe, hitting the airwaves tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 8 p.m. Central. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you there. I always love talking to my community. We're definitely going to be talking about this alongside all the other crazy things that happened this week in the world of politics. Again, I look forward to hearing what you guys have to say, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you there. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and if I don't see you in the stream, I hope you have a great weekend. I'll catch you on the next one.